Oh, good, excellent. All right, Eric says it sounds good, so let's get Chad to do his reintroduction again. Yeah, I'll do my reintroduction again. All right, so, I'm Adam Shake again. To those of you that are watching, we just had some pretty significant technical issues, so I think we have audio now. I think you can actually understand it. I think the video's going. I think we're brewing beer, so everything's good. So I'm Adam Shake. I'm the owner of BrewTroller. We're here at Little Beaver Brewery, which you can see right there, the big banner. That's Chad in the pink shirt behind me. He's brewing some beer, so we're brewing a Hefeweizen today on his system. So all that being said, what we're doing here is a live kind of Q&A. So we really want you guys to participate if you're watching live. Ask questions in the group chat. Send them to Facebook if that's what you need to do. It doesn't really matter how you get them to me. Just get them to me, and we'll answer them here live. We'll try to come up with some of our own questions as well. We'll give you a run through the BrewTroller here in just a second, and we'll kind of do all those things. So as soon as Chad is ready, he's mashing in at the moment with his BrewTroller. I'll give him a chance to introduce himself and his brewery and kind of what's going on today. Talk about how he uses the BrewTroller, and we'll go from there. So I'm gonna let this sit for just a second so you can watch what he's doing. And when he's ready, he'll sit down in the chair and kind of walk through it with you. And then when he's done, I'll walk through his brewery with you. So give us just a second. As soon as we're ready, Chad will introduce himself. So enjoy watching him brew.
Chad, brew in September this year?
What's that?
You have a over there anywhere?
Yeah, it's, you gotta kind of climb underneath to get to it.
Is it back behind the fridge?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's, you can. Yeah. For those watching, I adjusted a couple hose lengths earlier today, and I forgot about something that I needed to do. So, that's my quick rig here that I'm working on. And the reason why I got water dripping all over. So while I'm doing this, I can tell you, I've been brewing about 10 years. 100% all grain nowadays. I have been for quite some time.
So all that stuff, you gotta understand.
All right, so let me clear this up and then I'll.
Download because with Google Hangouts, you can just say share this, record it and share it.
Hey Adam, I need a lid. Can I adjust the thing?
Yeah, you can take it off and turn it off, or hand it to me.
So yeah, now it's just going to be a lid, so it's not going to be very interesting. All right, so
You want me to watch it next?
yeah, just let me know when that goes down. I'll hear it, but
Okay.
so.
Hey, don't forget this one. It's gotta get
All right, so as I went on a big, long, detailed thing earlier, and there was apparently no audio, so you guys didn't get to hear it. My name's Chad. I've been brewing about 10 years. My last name's Beavers, hence Little Beaver Brewery. I specialize in imperial stouts, so if you look up LIL Beaver Brewery on Untapped, you'll see most of what I do is imperial stouts. I got 9 beers on tap on my kegerator, and I think 6 of them are imperial stouts. 2 of them are sours, which I got into brewing finally about a year ago. But started using BrewTroller probably a year and a half ago. Adam's a personal friend of mine. He kind of turned me onto it, talked me into it, I guess I'd say. And this is before he had anything to do with owning the company or doing anything like that. He was just a user, an avid user, and So it kept telling me, yeah, you can do it with natural gas, because I had no desire to go electric. I just been using natural gas. I like it. So finally, I guess I said, you know, it does sound pretty cool. Let me try it out. So fast forward to the first brew I actually used the system on. Well, let me give you a quick back bit. The way I used to brew is a Herm system with no temperature control on my automation, so my burners are manually controlled. So when I hit the temperature that I wanted, I just shut it off. So what kept happening is I pretty much spent 6 hours of a brew day. It felt like watching my burner turning the valve on and off, on and off, on and off. So, you know, it come time to, oh no, I gotta have I gotta have my hops ready. Oh no, I gotta, you know, get my chiller. I use a counterflow chiller ready. Oh, I gotta have my fermenter cleaned and sanitized. So everything was just last minute, and it was really stressful brew days. So I finally, I did my first BrewTroller brew. I think it was by myself. I think Adam could have been here. I just don't remember, but I don't think he was, because I remember just having all the time in the world. And literally by the time my mash was halfway done, I had everything clean, everything sanitized. My hops were weighed out, you know, marked time on the paper plates I used, what time to put them in. And I was just sitting in a chair watching my system going, wow, what do I do now? So now, when I brew, I invite a lot of people over. So there's probably 8-10 people here right now. I can do a big brew and kind of have a party at the same time. And honestly, a buddy of mine that's here again tonight, he's never been around brewing at all. So I don't think he desires to homebrew. But he's heard it's a lot of work, and you know, he comes over and he's like, watch, you know, we were about done boiling. He said, so there's really not much to this brew thing, is there? And I explained to him really the BrewTroller that does a lot of it, because it takes, you know, it takes a lot of the stress of watching and monitoring. So what I'm doing right now, just to give you an idea, you can't quite see the kettle, but my boil kettle, I put my some more water in that I had heated up to the same temperature that I want to recirculate it, because I'm running the Herm system. So I just mashed into the center kettle. By the way, these are stainless steel BrewTech 30-gallon kettles. They just came out like a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. I love them. I was doing kegels up until that point. So I got my Herm coil going in here. What I'm doing is I drained it down to 10 gallons, and so before I started recirculating my mash, I heated up in my boil kettle water to the right temperature and ran it over here. So as soon as this gets done transferring, which is probably getting fairly close, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start the recirculation. So what the BrewTroller is going to do is, you can't see it here, and I don't want to adjust this camera and all that crap, but it's telling me what do I want my hot liquor temp to be, which I manually plug in.
Even just $1 help out.
What is my mash temperature going to be? What it's going to do is, as soon as I start recirculating my mash, when that mash hits the right temperature that I set, which for my first step, I think it's 122 degrees on the step, it's going to beep, and it's a red light, and it'll beep, beep, and you can't miss it. I mean, if I'm inside with my kids, if I'm out in front of the yard, I'm going to hear it, and I'm going to come running. It's going to tell me, all right, you hit temp, and then the timer's going to automatically start. Once the timer starts, I think this first step is 20 minutes, okay? So it's going to run for 20 minutes, and then it's going to actually beep at me. So it's going to beep at me and tell me you're going up to the next step. So then what it's going to do is it's going to go ahead and raise up my hot liquor temp, and I don't have my recipe in front of me. It's already programmed in the BrewTroller, so I don't need to know it, honestly. So it's going to go ahead, it's going to ramp up, it's going to kick on my burner, which is right behind me, which is just tied into a solenoid. The thing cost me $30 on eBay, really easy. 3-wire hookup, basically 110. It's getting power, flame is on, no power, flame is off. So it's just that easy for the natural gas side of things. Plumbed it myself, I'm not a plumber, but it's, you know, pretty sound. So once that step, once the liquid, the hot liquor tank hits the temp, you know, obviously as it's going, the mash is continuously recirculating. So it's gonna, once the mash hits the next step time, it's gonna beep at me again and let me know I hit my next step temperature, and then I just hit a button to make it stop beeping and flashing, and it's still gonna do its thing regardless whether I hit the button or not. It's just to notify me, hey, you're at your next step temp. So, and it's just gonna continue to do that. I think I got a 4-step mash for this one, and it's the only brew that I do any type of step mashing other than a mash out. I do mash out everything I do, 168, 170. But I'm ready to start recirculating, so Adam's probably going to bore you here for a few. So.
Well, all right. I hope that was helpful, guys. At least I hope it was. So let me take a second here. I'm going to unplug from the power, and we're going to get a little bit closer, and I'll kind of give you a closer look at Chad's control panel, because that's kind of the brains of the organization, right? So there's Chad's control panel. I'm going to try to get this so you can see it real well. And there's a bunch of switches, and then there's the rotary encoder, which is that silver knob. The LCD screen is your onboard to the controller way to see what's going on. So you don't need to be connected to a computer or anything in order to run BrewTroller and run it well. And the rotary encoder works a lot like the old iPads. It's a twist and push kind of a situation. You'll notice that the switches are all auto on off, even though they're backwards on the video. And that's because when wired this way, you can maintain manual control over any of the outputs you've got. So in Chad's case, he's got 2 pumps, his hot liquor tank, and a fan. And he can either let the BrewTroller control them by by switching to auto, or, as you can see with his hot liquor tank, or turn the fan up manually by pushing it to on, as you see he just did. And we added a speed control there as well. Or you can turn them off. So if you ever need to just literally reach over and turn them off, you can. So, and then you'll notice in the upper corner there's the on-off switch. That's for the BrewTroller itself. And then the little red thing above it is the alarm. So when we get to the right temperature, which you'll see if you can read it backwards, right now his actual temperature is 122, 123, 124. So it's going up as he's recirculating. And once it hits 127, it just kicked his burner off. And that's kind of how BrewTroller works. So if you look at his setup, it's 3 30-gallon tanks, right? And you'll notice, manual ball valves in his case, and cam locks, which is a really slick way of quickly connecting bits and pieces. And you see he's using them right now.
They look pretty too. And
they do look pretty. And right above Chad's hand, you'll notice a temperature probe. So in his case, he's got 2 temperature probes on the device, and then I think he can even monitor chill temperature as well. So there's the temperature probe right there. So that's how the BrewTroller knows what's going on. And you can add temperature control or thermometers, temperature probes, to multiple places on your system. So you can add them to your hot liquor tank, your mash tun, your boil kettle, your chiller output, and then there's 3 auxiliary temperature probes, and you can via the software with a little tweaking, you can do averaging, you can do all kinds of stuff. So in essence, the BrewTroller connects to your power source, which is either your heat source, which is either an electric element or a gas burner via solenoid, or you could do steam, with the proper valves. And BrewTroller then monitors temperature via the temperature probe and turns those heat sources on and off as appropriate for whatever step in your recipe. On top of that, you can control other things. You can control pumps. You can control motorized ball valves. You can control all kinds of devices outside of just temperature in your heat sources. And then there's a number of inputs on the BrewTroller Phoenix as well, so you can deal with things like float switches and flow control and so on and so forth. So it's really about what you connect to BrewTroller that makes your experience what it is. So if you take your existing brewery, you can connect the bits and pieces that make your brewery work to BrewTroller and brew with it. If you're planning a brand new brewery, the sky's the limit. You can decide how you want to brew, how you want to heat, what you want to control, and then pick the right components that allow BrewTroller to control that thing for you. So that's kind of the benefit of BrewTroller. Before we had audio, unfortunately, I think I might have just gotten a question. Sorry. All right, we got a question from Thomas, it looks like. Is there a chat feature that is on the screen as well? Thomas, if you, on the Google Hangout on the left-hand side, at least for me, you should be able to pull up a little menu, and it's got a chat window. If you click on that chat window, it should bring up the chat on this side of the screen, and you should be able to ask questions that way. Or if you just want to send me another email, I can see the email right here on this computer. In fact, let me make sure I plug this computer in so it doesn't die. And if you have any questions, please ask them. Or Thomas, if you have a camera, you should be able to video join the chat as well if you want to. I'm not telling you you have to, and do it that way. So you crack open a good homebrew if you're doing that. I'm going to see if we have any other questions from anywhere else. I believe Steve and Eric are logged in as well. If you guys have any questions, ask away. So we'll continue this chat for a little bit longer. It ended up going much longer than we thought because we had no audio. Oh no! So I'll kind of, while we're waiting for folks to ask any questions that they want to ask, I'll kind of reiterate what Chad talked about and what's one of my my favorite features of BrewTroller, and that's that it gives you back part of your brew day. The concept there is that because BrewTroller is controlling your temperature, and you don't have to watch that temperature gauge and constantly fiddle with your burner to maintain mash temperatures or whatever you're doing, you have the ability to walk away, which in this particular case gives us the chance to be social, which you'll hear lots of talking in the background, and I've heard sometimes it's kind of loud. That social aspect makes brew days a whole lot more fun. But on top of that, it allows you to brew in situations you didn't think you could before. So a perfect example is I had a brew day last summer where my wife and I brewed at the same time we were cleaning out the garage. So I was able to interact with the steps I needed to. So I was able to add grain, add water, add hops when it was appropriate because the BrewTroller told me via that alarm when I needed to interact with it. But when I didn't, I could be in the garage moving stuff out of the driveway, cleaning, sweeping, doing whatever it is my wife needed me to do that day. Or if I'm brewing by myself outside in the garage and she needs me to come in and watch my son for a few minutes while she goes to the bathroom or takes a shower or whatever needs to happen, I can do those things because BrewTroller's handling the heavy lifting of monitoring temperatures and in some cases even moving liquid. There are BrewTroller users who have automated their breweries to the point of push a button, come back when it's done in the kettle. And it moves liquid that way. And I know there are some folks that think that that's going a little too far, that that's not really brewing. But if you need to brew a beer to fill your pipeline and you just don't have the time, the ability to be able to do something like that is pretty awesome. And you don't have to. You don't have to let BrewTroller do every step for you. You can add it at any level of integration that you want, from just controlling a simple brew or simple ball valve or a simple burner or simple pump, to all the way up to adding hops. I know we have a BrewTroller user who automatically drops grain via a grain hopper. I know that there are guys that have planned out hop droppers. So it's really about your imagination and how much you're going to use the automated features of the brewery. So, Thomas, did you manage to find the chat feature? If not, there's also a Q&A feature. I wonder, it says it's disabled. I don't know how to enable it. So for now, let's just stick to the chat. So if you can get to the chat to ask questions, that's really the best way. Or send me an email at adam@brewtroller.com, or hit me on Facebook, on the BrewTroller Facebook page. Just either post or send me a message, and I'll get them there. Or we do have a Slack channel. If you're kind of a techie guy, you can go to Slack or brewtroller.slack.com and log in there. Although that will take some registration. So yeah, there's multiple ways to get to me to ask questions. Looks like there's no questions at the moment. Interesting. So I just got word that the chat feature may not be working. Let me see if I can change that. I'm going to do a test here in the chat. The chat should be working. If it won't work, again, send me an email at adam@brewtroller.com or hit me on Facebook, and I will most certainly answer your questions. Eric, do you have a question? Post it on the Slack channel, and I will and I'll answer your question for you. I'm checking to see if I can enable chat any differently. So chat should definitely be enabled according to Google, according to the Googleness. All right, Thomas says there's no chat. All right, well, Thomas, if you want to hit me on Facebook or via email, I'll answer whatever question you have. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear to be working. I'm going to play with something here. Hold on. Nothing? Man, I'm not sure. Let me do a Google search on how to enable the chat. Go for it.
Oh, I never even saw that. Did she just do that to you?
Turn on Google Chat. Google admin talks, sharing and organizations, and chats only. Well, I don't know if I can enable it. Control room doesn't give me any options. Sorry, guys. I wish I could. All right, so we have a question from Eric and Thomas. Let me. Oh, if you hear that in the background, Chad's alarm just went off, telling him that he needs to interact with it. So it just said, "Hey, I need your attention. Come do something for me." All right, so we got a couple of questions that came through. Eric asks, how much DIY is required to get up and running with BrewTroller? And that is a very good question. So I will be honest with you that it is not an insignificant amount of DIY setup to get going. However, I want you to understand that none of the DIY setup is difficult. It requires no soldering. It requires no degree in electrical engineering. It requires none of that kind of stuff. So in essence, basic tools can get you set up with a BrewTroller. You need a drill to be able to drill holes and mount your BrewTroller. You're going to need a screwdriver to connect all of the bits and pieces. So inside and on the BrewTroller, all the connections that you're going to make to the BrewTroller are either by pre-configured wires that just click in, or they're by screw terminals that allow you to very easily attach a wire via that screw terminal. So you take the BrewTroller along with the manual, which we will have updated manuals for the Phoenix by the time it ships. And it's very easy to connect the bits and pieces. And in fact, the current iteration, the BrewTroller Phoenix, is simpler than the older versions because the BrewTroller itself can provide 12 volts up to a certain amperage to your devices directly. So like a motorized ball valve can connect directly. You don't even need a relay advance. So once you understand the basics of what we're talking about, so your heating elements have to be connected to a relay, your burner has to be connected to a relay, and it depends upon what you're going to do, what type of relay. But those are simple plug and play as well. So you connect the right wire to the right spot. So again, no soldering, no advanced electronic knowledge. You don't really have to be in there adding components or creating circuits or anything like that. You just have to connect via screw terminals, connect via click-in sockets, and just pick how you want to mount it. You know, whether it's in a case like this or a metal case or whatever you want to do. So that's kind of the DIY question there, and I hope Eric that was a satisfactory answer. And then Steve asks, what does it take to tell your BrewTroller what to do? And that is a brilliant question to ask. So there's a couple of ways to tell your BrewTroller what to do. The first way to do it is to literally enter it directly into the BrewTroller. So I'm pointing right now to the encoder knob, and via that encoder knob, you can go in and create a program or a recipe. And it's very similar to what you do in any other brew software like Beersmith or BrewToad. You can go in there and give your recipe a name. You tell it how many pounds of grain you're using, when your hops are going to be added, what your mash schedule is, and you can do all that by turning that encoder knob to change the setting, pressing it to say enter or whatever you need to do at that time. And so you can actually enter your recipe right there on the BrewTroller on the fly at the time you need to do it. As well, when you're in the recipe, if you need to make a change on the fly, if you need to change a set temperature or start or stop a timer or whatever, you can do that during the fly with that same rotary encoder, and then all the information is displayed right there on the LCD. I think the simpler way to do it, and again, one of our goals with BrewTroller right now is to improve how you interact with it, is via the web app. And so you can log on, you connect your BrewTroller to your network, and Chad has that set up. You can connect it to your network, pull up the web app, and actually connect your BrewTroller via your phone, a tablet, a computer, any of those type of things, and you can import Beer XML, or you will be able to, you can't right now, but by the time the Phoenix ships, you will be able to edit and create recipes right there in the web app. So let's say you use BrewTroller or you use Beersmith. You can export Beer XML and import the Beer XML right into your BrewTroller, and then all of your parameters for your brew day are set. So that's how you tell BrewTroller what to do. It's via a program or a recipe, and then there is some initial setup, and I'll talk about that a little in just a second, in order to configure your BrewTroller in the first place. So configuring your BrewTroller, kind of moving to the last bit of telling it what to do. Before the Phoenix ships, we're going to have a new cloud application that allows you to select the options that you need. So you're going to tell it how many vessels you have, whether you're 3-vessel, 2-vessel, single vessel, brew in a bag, rims, herms, whatever the type of brewery you're doing. You tell it those types of things. You can change it from imperial to metric. You can tell it what your dead space is, how much liquid's left in your lines. You can tell it all of these things, similar to setting up a brewery in Beersmith, and then you'll be able to hit upload, connect your BrewTroller to USB to your computer, and the cloud application will compile the firmware and put it on your BrewTroller for you. So that's how you tell BrewTroller about your brewery, and then your program is how your BrewTroller understands what to do to create the recipe you've done. The last kind of mildly complicated bit is valve profiles, and I want to take a minute to explain those. Valve profiles exist to allow you to say at each step in the program, in the recipe, you can say turn these outputs on and off, specifically for valves and pumps. So that's how you automate the movement of liquid, is via those valve profiles. So I think there's 20 outputs on the brewery. Let's say you're using 2 of them for heat, and 1 of them for your alarm. That leaves you 17 outputs that you can set via a valve profile to control 17 pumps. That would be kind of crazy. Or 2 pumps in and 15 valves. So whatever the configuration you need. The last thing you can really do from a configuration perspective is volume sensing via a pressure sensor that you would connect to your BrewTroller and to your kettle, and then that will allow BrewTroller to understand how much liquid, and you can act on the valve profiles based on the input you're getting from your volume measurement. So that's kind of how you interface with BrewTroller. Looks like we do have a question from Thomas. He's asking about PIDs. So he says, so if I understand correctly, after looking at the control panel behind you, I do not need PID controllers whatsoever. The software and one-wire temperature sensors will control that aspect. In the process of building a control box and wishing he had seen that beforehand. So you're absolutely right, Thomas. This replaces the need for PIDs, which if you've seen like the electric brewing setup, the Cal clones, they're all PID-based, and those are great. They allow you to have precise control, right? You can set your temperature. But the PID logic, the same logic, exists inside a BrewTroller, so you can still change the same 3 parameters of the PID to kind of hone in on how on temperature fluctuations and so on and so forth. But all of that is software based and inside the BrewTroller, so you do not need any PIDs. There are some vendors, I think Brewers Hardware is selling a PID style display that you can add to your control panel. That allows you to have the same look of a PID, but again, all of the logic is done by BrewTroller and is available to monitor either on board via the LCD or via the web app, or the onboard PID displays if you choose you want to go through that through BrewTroller or through Brewers Hardware. And then Thomas also asks, is the Phoenix controller DIN mount ready? So the Kickstarter Phoenix that you guys can back, and again, we encourage you guys to go back our Kickstarter because that's how we're going to make this thing happen. The BrewTroller Phoenix as it exists is just a circuit board. However, we will be carrying a DIN mount case that was exactly the same case that the DX2 came in. We will offer that case, and it is inexpensive. And if we get to a certain point if we meet our goal and we're looking at stretch goals on the Kickstarter, we may start to include these for you. But it is DIN mountable via that case, and it's a pretty slick little device. So, Thomas, the board itself is not inherently DIN mountable, but for a very inexpensive cost, you can add a small enclosure just for the board that will allow you to mount it to a DIN rack. So I hope that answers your question. So looking at the time there, anybody else have any questions? Eric or Steve, you guys have any other questions? Or Thomas, of course, send questions. I'm gonna look out here on Facebook one more time, see if we've gotten any questions. None yet. All right, so we're gonna go back over here to the Hangout. All right, and I want to talk a little bit about the Kickstarter. So I had someone ask me this question the other day. What is it? So we're asking for $40,000 in the Kickstarter, and they want to know what that $40,000 is for. And I wanted to kind of break that down a little bit. Now I don't have the exact figures in front of me here at the Little Beaver Brewery. Oh, there's the alarm going off again. So that's telling Chad, hey, come do something. And here he comes. He's running. He's not really running. Hey, Chad, what is that telling you to do?
I think it means get another beer, doesn't it?
I think it does mean get another beer.
Oh, no, it's telling me that my next step is going up, so I need to adjust my beer.
Oh, yep, it just told him that it's time for the next step. So he's step mashing. BrewTroller's handling that control automatically, but it just told him, hey, your next step's going to occur. Do you want to do anything about that? Do you want to change the set point? And you can enable or disable that. But anyway, back to Kickstarter. So we're asking for $40,000. I will tell you that well over 75% of that is literally going to fulfilling the rewards. So 75% of that $40,000 is the cost to produce and ship to you the BrewTroller. So that is the vast majority of the situation. And what we're running into is a matter of product minimums, order minimums, in order to be able to produce the BrewTroller, and we're doing it via a local manufacturer right here in Central Illinois. Outside of that, there's a small, about 10% of the requirement of $40,000 is fees that go to pay for Amazon payments and the Kickstarter, and then the last little bit is all about BrewTroller business setup and future development. So if you've looked at the Kickstarter, we're looking at what we want to do in the future. And that will be plug and play modular systems. So for folks that don't want to have to build their own controller, we're looking at smaller single zone controllers. There's a kind of a budget version board. There's all kinds of stuff going up. So we're asking for a little bit of money, not much, from the total percentage to help fund some of the purchasing of prototypes to help move BrewTroller into a market that is not more than just DIY. So that's that. So I see there are a few more questions that popped up. So Steve asks, is it compatible with any valves or temperature controllers, or just the one being sold on your page? That's a great question. The firmware is compatible with Arduino. However, there are a lot of things that need to be added, and you would have to do quite a bit of modification in order to actually brew beer with a stock Arduino board. That's a very good question. I know some folks have done that, but it is not for the faint of heart. So really, you need to be using, or the easiest way to get going is to use the BrewTroller Phoenix hardware to get going. There is a limited number, or there's only one temperature sensor that works right now with the BrewTroller, and we're investigating adding K-type and RTD type controller or type temperature sensors. But right now it's just the Dallas one-wire setup that is compatible with the BrewTroller. So I know there's some folks that have worked with other things, other sensors, other type things, and that's the benefit, a great benefit of an open source piece of software like our firmware is if you want to add something yourself, fork it off at GitHub, add your feature set, and I'll tell you what, if you do that, if you fork it and you add a feature set that is really great, do a pull request. Maybe we'll pull your code back in and we'll include it as a feature set for all BrewTroller users. So that's a great question, Steve. Eric asks,
By the way, there's no fork in that.
Why would you want to use BrewTroller over BCS or BrewPi? And I'll tell you that the primary benefit of BrewTroller over the other controllers on the market is flexibility and the amount of control. So no one else, BCS or BrewPi included, have the number of inputs. BCS doesn't do volume control, and they just don't allow you the level of flexibility in the setup and control of your brewery. So BrewPi and BCS are great controllers, and they do some amazing things, and they can control your brew day. But if what you really want is something that is flexible, that is very powerful in terms of what you can control and monitor, then BrewTroller knocks them all out of the market. You really cannot match the level of input and output that BrewTroller can get you with anything else in the market right now. And that may seem really bold and bragging to say, but it is true. And cost-wise, especially compared to the BCS, you're really not talking about spending a whole lot more money to get more control. And you're really not talking about any less approachability from a setup perspective. And to specifically look at the BrewPi for a second, we are working on ways to integrate Raspberry Pi with the BrewTroller, and I think the best way currently, and I think a really intriguing feature from the Raspberry Pi perspective, is if you include a Raspberry Pi in your control panel, that can act as a wireless bridge to allow you to have wireless connection. It can act as your web server, so you can actually serve the web app locally and not have to be connected to the internet at all. And it also gives you HDMI, so you could monitor your brew on a large TV that sits in your man cave or whatever it might be. So there's all kinds of awesome options around Raspberry Pi, and I think that's where BrewPi is doing some neat things with that particular controller, but we can do the same things with BrewTroller. So that's a great question, Eric, and thank you for asking. I'm going to look to see if there's any more questions. I'm going to look on Facebook, and if there's not, we'll get this thing wrapped up. Eric or Steve or Tom, do you have any other questions that you would like to ask before we log off for the day? I'll have Chad come talk one more time while you guys get a chance to make sure here. So, awesome. And I apologize for all of the confusion kind of getting started here and with the technical difficulties. We will post this thing up to the Kickstarter project so you guys can see it if you even weren't here. So let's see if Chad has a moment to come give any more thoughts to BrewTroller and to his setup, and maybe kind of give you a little sales pitch, ask you to back to Kickstarter. So Chad, you got a sec?
All right, very important person.
He is a very important person. Chad just said he's important. Don't believe him, but he is. You're cleaning kegs, so yeah. So, and I want you to understand this really truly is a real brew day. So, all right, Chad's right there. He's checking on his brew. I'm gonna have him sit down. And Chad, if you would just, you know, tell him your favorite things about BrewTroller, and kind of wrap up. You know, we're going to be done, so I don't know if you want to talk about the rest of what we're going to do, or what maybe your future plans are with BrewTroller, or talk about BrewTroller, which we haven't talked about at all. Any of those kinds of things. So, Mr. Beavers, do your thing.
You do this for me, then what is it? You take this off, leave it in the sink, mix it out. We'll just the whole thing. What are your grains? What are your tools? So, I can do some. So just do not rub the grain.
So, hey guys, so I don't know if you can notice, but I've been extremely active with the brew back here. Not really. One of the coolest things about it is it pretty much runs itself. The only thing is I haven't mastered my spark arm on my new system yet, so grain gets a little clogged up in there sometimes. So something to do with my screen. I got to deal with that, but that's more with the manufacturer, I think, than anything. So as far as BrewTroller, it does what he said it does. It does what I want it to do, which is most important. You can go as crazy as you want. I think he talked a little bit earlier, if I overheard him, about some of the people that make these things, fully automated and, switches on, switches off, transfer automatically. You can have it do all that if you want to. Personally, I have no desire to do that, and I probably never will. What I wanted it for was to do exactly what it's doing, which is to make my brew day easier and make it more fun. I don't have to focus on constantly monitoring my brew. I can hang out with my buddies, have a good time, drink some beers, and get everything else ready throughout the day. So it's great. One of the other nice things about it is I got two little kids. They're 1 and 2 years old, so they take a lot of time. If I want to brew, I can come out here, the night before, get everything set up, and then fire it up and walk away for an hour or 2 hours, knowing that it's going to get up to my set temp for my, my mash in, my strike temperature is going to be right where I need it. And when I'm ready to brew, I can walk out and mash in. There's Adam's goofy smile. He's got that there. So follow him on Facebook and see if I just hand tighten it. But anyways, that's one of the great things. And then the same thing, once I'm mashing, if you go a little longer than an hour on your mash, whatever you do, it's really not going to hurt anything. It's just going to keep circulating if you do a hose type system. But for me, that's great because sometimes I got other stuff to do and I just can't 100% focus on my brew. If I did that, then it makes the whole life a little bit more difficult sometimes. So it's great that I have that flexibility to walk away and still go. But other than that, if you guys have any questions for me, ask Adam. He can give you my information or something like that. I'm happy to even have a phone conversation with somebody if they're serious and have some information. I'll let that go through him though. I'm not going to post up my number and stuff like that. But yeah, so I know he's got some ideas. There's a lot of stuff that I'd love to see. I know plug and play is what it's all about. It is a little bit of work to get set up, but I can tell you, once it's set up and running, I really haven't touched the thing as far as electronics or hardware at all. I just don't have to. I just set up a new recipe and go, so it works out great. I don't know if he showed you, but there's also a web interface. So I got my laptop running in another part of my garage over here, and it actually shows me everything going on with the brew. I can also pull that up on my phone if I want. So if I am in there with my kids or something in the backyard, I can just pull it right up on my phone and I'm almost at strike temp, or my mash is almost done. So it's pretty awesome. Same thing when it comes time to chill. I've got a temperature sensor set up so that I know when my work's pretty much chilled to where I want it. So I can, in the meantime, make sure everything's sanitized, ready to go for that. Finish cleaning up my mash tun, have everything ready to go. So a lot of times I brew, afternoon, evenings on a Friday or Saturday. So I do some pretty imperial stouts, 13, 14, 16% type stuff, and they take a while. So sometimes I'm not getting done with the brew day till 1 or 2 o'clock, and I have a little fun while I'm brewing, so that makes things take longer. So it's nice to not have to focus exactly on is my brew going correctly. Pretty much know it is. So if anybody has any questions, again, feel free to shoot them out. But otherwise, signing off. Thanks, guys.
All right. Thanks to Chad for letting us come over and do this at his place today. It's a lot of fun to brew here, and I'll tell you what, if you can see behind me, maybe I'll kind of flip this around, you'll notice that we're hanging out, man. We got folks eating, we got folks sitting outside just chatting. I think that by itself is one of the biggest benefits of BrewTroller. We are able to walk away, to slow down your brew day, to not have to be constantly on top of it, and to really maintain that control. Let BrewTroller do the heavy work. So it allows for a much more relaxed and much easier brew day. So I thought I've got my phone here, and let me see if we can connect here. So what I've got here on my phone is Chad's brewery. And that's really hard to see. There it goes. So we are connected to Chad's brewery on the phone, and you can see that's where his hot liquor tank, and I know it's backwards. There's not really anything I can do about that. But there's his mash, timers. You can control you can see your valve profiles, and you can even set your individual valve profiles right here. So this is the current version. There are some significant changes coming down the road right now with the web app. We're placing like the text-based method of seeing things with valves, actual like gauges that move, and PID-style displays, and all kinds of great ways to interact with your BrewTroller from the web. So that's kind of coming down the road. But Chad even uses his, like I said, his laptop right here to connect to that same application to control his brewery, to monitor temperature, and to do all those things. So I don't see any other questions popping up in the background here. Checking one more time. Steve and Eric, nothing else. Thomas, again, thank you for asking questions. I appreciate it. So we're going to go ahead and sign off. I'll post a link to this on the Kickstarter page and on our Facebook page. Please follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/BrewTroller Brewing, or on Twitter at twitter.com/BrewTroller. We're also on Reddit. There's a Reddit subreddit for BrewTroller, r/BrewTroller. Please find us on Kickstarter, and I cannot emphasize this enough. That is how we have to get going here. If we don't make that funding, I cannot guarantee that we'll be able to bring BrewTroller back to market, and that would be a terrible thing. So even if all you contribute is $1, please do. If you can't contribute anything, share it on Facebook, on Twitter, on Pinterest, on Instagram, anywhere that you can share it. We need your help to get the word out, to get the dollars in the door, and to make you guys a part of what BrewTroller is, which is a great community of brewers, open source, contributing to the hobby of homebrewing. So I thank you for your time. Again, I apologize for technical difficulties, and bear with us. We'll have more videos. We'll have updates on the Kickstarter page, and we'll just keep on keeping on until the Kickstarter's over and we crest that $40,000 amount. So again, thank you for contributing. Thank you for taking the time to watch, and have a good night. If I had my glass with me, I'd say cheers. So thank you so much.